It's the final day of competition of the ISU 2024 Grand Prix final. As we fly over the cliffs and see Grenoble far below us. I'm Ted Bird, Mark Hanratty. The senior dance, your event, coming up.
Oh my goodness, and what a thrilling and exciting and unpredictable event it is likely to be. And the word unpredictable, not an adjective commonly described to an ice dance competition, because so often it is the case that the results can be predicted based on form coming into the event. But this season, the ice dance competition has been showcasing a vulnerability in the ice dancers that has never really been seen before so readily, and it continued yesterday in the rhythm dance, and hopefully it won't continue in the free dance. Hopefully everybody will be able to skate to their absolute best and potential without any falls, as we have seen thus far.
But a vulnerability because these athletes are pushing the limits to the edge of disaster in order to get the maximum they can out of the elements that they do in their performance as well. Let's talk a little bit about the team that puts this. It's not just the skaters, it's the coaches and the choreographers and the costume makers, and not just for this discipline, for every single discipline. There's much more behind the scenes, and this is a sport, it's also an art, and it's also entertainment. Much goes into this. And
there are so many different individuals involved. That said, Piper, Gilles and Poirier to the left of the screen there are joined and supervised by Carol Lane, their forever coach, and that a different dynamic and a united network that will hopefully have been hard at work to resume their positive energy following the disappointment of yesterday's rhythm dance.
Well, the fall, hitting the boards, taking the fall was devastating for Paul, but this team is resilient, and they have always brought innovation to the ice and to this discipline and itself, and we expect to see a beautiful free program. They're sitting in the bottom.
Yeah, they come in.
Rarely been there, if ever.
Their scores this season on the 6 events of the Junior Grand Prix were comparably high with Chock and Bates, and yet, as you say, Ted, they find themselves, based on the fall and the rhythm dance, in last of the 6 teams. But we've seen previous seasons where Piper and Paul have won the Grand Prix final, and it has not translated into a world title. So
the reverse can happen. Perhaps, we'll see. Not here on this day, perhaps, but this is only partway through the season.
And as we look ahead to this exciting event, perhaps the reason for the mistakes over the course of this season are because we are looking at teams who have been together for 10 years. Some of these teams and these skaters are heading into what will be their 5th Olympic Games. And so whilst that amasses an incredible amount of experience and knowledge, it also signals likely the end of their competitive careers. And as they come possibly to the end of that phase of their life, the intensity, the desire heightens, and that's maybe why we're seeing the mistakes being made.
Yeah, and also it is not easy to come close to the end of a career in which has consumed your life.
Yes.
And you love the highs and you've been challenged by the lows, but it's in your life, it's in your soul, it's in your blood. And it's hard if one looks at the finality, perhaps at Olympic Games.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's a tough time of life. And it's also exciting.
And so true, and although there is the pressure and there's the desire to showcase and get the results that are reflective of your talent, it's also a moment in their life that is really, really special. So whilst it's filled with desperation for success, hopefully all of the 12 skaters about to compete in this event will be able to relish the fact that they're at the peak of their physical health and life.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is exciting. Here we go. The first team out from Canada, Piper Gilles, Paul Poirier. And they had that challenge, that fall into the rhythm dance, but their free dance is sublime. Up next, Evgenia Lopareva and Brissaud from France.
They're in the moment.
And also from Canada, Marjorie Lajoie and Lagha.
And even, you know, one of the younger teams, Marjorie Lajoie and Lagha, are a team that have been together for over a decade as well. Yeah. We have to really show respect to the commitment that all of these teams and these skaters and these humans have given to each other and to the craft of ice dance. And I think, Ted, we so often hear of very passionate fans online who are, you know, one camp of maybe Gilles and Poirier, and then there's a Chock and Bates fans, or the Charles Guignard, Fabbri fans. But whoever is your favorite, these are athletes and artists that are, you know, they've given their lives to the sport of ice dance.
And it's very difficult to tell the difference because there is all at such a high quality. It depends on that moment, and that's what happened to Piper and Paul in the rhythm dance. They took a fall, they paid the price, and that's where they are now. But there doesn't diminish or define them. Their excellence will be shown in the free dance.
Yes, and the criteria and the judges this year have been made to be very, very clear that when a major error, as per they suffered in the rhythm dance, occurs, it has to have a consequential impact on the component scores. And so that's why we've seen when the couples, as they have, not just Piper and Paul, but as others have made this season, it's not been salvaged by the judges and the components. It's been seismic.
And would you agree with the point that these athletes are pushing the limits, and therefore it's a little bit more risky, and we therefore are seeing perhaps more errors?
Yes, I think so. I don't think there have been huge, vast changes athletically in this year within this Olympic cycle, but I think that the intensity, I sense it's the intensity of what it means to these skaters. And because we have a group of ice dance teams, as I say, that are coming to the end of their competitive careers, that have all been so closely knit, that it just seems sizzling with anticipation, sizzling like it's a hot tinder roof, ready to explode with the energy of all the teams. And that's when I look at this team on the screen now, Lopareva, Brissaud, who have a seeming freshness or freedom. There's a liberation in them because they're not coming into their 5th Olympic Games. They're not as... They're committed to beyond. They are going to go to 2030 to do the Winter Olympic Games in the home country of France. So perhaps the pressure on them is lessened and they're just ready to enjoy the fact that they're Grand Prix finalists for the first time.
Yeah, and I can agree with all that. I do think, though, they are pushing the limit of speed. Not the limit of speed. They're pushing the speed, the depth of edge, and that's always a little bit more risky. And I didn't mean the difficulty of a lift necessarily. I meant the aggressiveness, the assertiveness of skating.
Well, and that's a good point, and I feel like you're right, and that speed has been pushed actually by the juniors and some of the other seniors because of the influence of what I think is happening in Enya in Italy, where you have a school of skating that's a little bit different to the Ice Academy in Montreal, which boasts so many of the world's top teams. That school has been pushing speed and getting recognition and acknowledgement from it, from Mrazkova Mrazek, the world junior champions 2 seasons ago, and maybe the likes of the Tashlers, as we look now at Marjorie and Zachary.
Okay, and that wraps up our preamble. Now we are going to get ready for the game, the competition. These are remarkable athletes, and you're beautifully outfitted. There's so much that goes into all of this, but don't diminish at all in any shape or form the physical capacity and the demand that's on the body and the mind in this discipline.
And as we look at Marjorie and Zachary, they have just such phenomenal quality of skating skills. And none of the teams in the rhythm dance at this Grand Prix final, the first time when the front runners all come head to head, achieve personal best, or even particularly near their personal best. And so, interesting to see what transpires over the course of the next hour or so as we head into the free dance section.
Well, the building is pretty much full, and it's been electric through these last 3 days, and it's been a lot of fun to be here, Mark. We are so privileged to be in this seat and talk about the sport and the people that we love and have followed for years.
And actually, talking about that, Ted, about being here on site and being able to hear conversations of those involved in the sport, and also to see here in this venue how many people all have a voice, all want to have a voice. There are so many passionate people behind the scenes who want to push our sport forward, and that has to be a good thing if we can harness all those good ideas.
I feel in this year particularly that skating, figure skating has a bright future. Don't know which pathway it's going to take to that, but changes and innovations will be pushed forward, and I think that's only going to be healthy, good, interesting, and attract fans as well, we hope. And if you haven't seen figure skating live, get out to a building. You need to see how fast these skaters cover the ice. And
there we see the junior ice dancers who have finished their campaigns, now ready to learn from the best.
And here we go. A moment of focus and a deep breath.
Ladies and gentlemen,
And they glare into each other's eyes. The first team from Canada, Piper Gillies, Paul Poirier.
So, frustration, disappointment, and sadness in the rhythm dance, but this free dance in practice was so special.
128.40 is their season's best. They will skate to a whiter shade of pale.
This is the first of their 3 choreographic elements, the choreographic assisted jumps. And they could not be better to the music. Good ice coverage through the twizzles. So many emotions, I'm sure, for the coach, Caroline, Piper and Paul. stay composed. You perhaps sense that they had to guard their emotions because they were fueled with so much stress from yesterday's disappointment. And look, they don't look even phased at all. Carol, on the other hand.
Big sigh of relief and joy and pride for Carol, from Carol to this team she's been with for so long and such brilliant work for so many years. They've always brought something very special to the ice.
And the free dance here, not a beat untouched, not a beat of the music unconsidered, everything articulated with their bodies. And actually, I felt as they got to that glorious right back outside edge with a leg extension in front, I think, oh, that's the end move. I love this end move. We're at the end already. How did that happen?
They made time fly during that performance. So dreamy and so beautiful. The quality of their edges and their movements.
I fear that Piper and Paul can't celebrate or enjoy that gorgeous performance as much because of what happened yesterday. They look composed, but I'm scared to say it, Ted, because I do believe that this is potentially one of the best free dances in this competition, but will it have the same kind of impact as we head towards the latter stage of the competition? We'll see. This was amazing. Cartwheels, the lyric from Annie Lennox as they cartwheel with the choreo-assisted jumps. The lyric, I think, feeling kind of seasick as they articulated that with the choreo-assisted jumps. Just magnificent. This, the 1 foot turns done with unique choice of difficult turns at different times. There, the Group C entry into the twizzles. And even this, at the end of the choreo steps, was so on point with the music and so in fitting with the tango vibe that they were giving at that stage within this free dance.
The program component marks in the mid-9s, which indicates the quality of this team.
Oh, absolutely. But this year, you need high 9s, really, I think. I think we're going to have to see, we've seen from Chock and Bates 10s over the past couple of seasons. And Carol having to, work so hard to look after these humans.
Well, 128.40 is their season's best. And this is a 127.12, first team out. They look pretty happy with that score and with that skate. And keep in mind, this is only halfway through the season. Much more to come. Nationals, 4 continents, World Championships in Boston. There's room to move. 199.27 for Piper and Paul. Our next team represents France. Evgenia Lopareva and Jeffrey Brissaud.
And this free dance inspired by a runway show by Balenciaga. The music from that was by the designer's husband, Loic Gomez. The choreography by Guillaume Seron for the home crowd favorites. Such command of the blade. We're actually seeing much more speed than Piper and Paul. Really good skating skills. Well, so much was spoken about the top 4 teams, the front runners coming into this event. Evgenia Lopareva and Geoffrey Brissaud were just delighted to have made the cut as one of the Grand Prix finalists this season. But I actually think, Ted, that there were aspects in that, and skating skills and speed and unique novelty that really should put them in contention.
It's a completely different program. It was intense, but it was so beautifully presented. I think that the choreographer would be happy with what they had done here tonight.
And it is interesting, they've spoken about their work with the Olympic champion Guillaume Césarin, and this is such a different departure really for what Guillaume and his partner Gabriela Papadakis were so renowned for, but they've got a concept, and they've got a unique concept that separates them from others, and they said that Guillaume would give them so much creativity, they could only really take 50% of what he had to offer to them, and they're left with some brilliance.
At this number, this performance or this program perhaps fits them best. Others may not be able to do that.
Yes, and it allows them, you know, they've come in as one of the top 6 teams in the world. This as a vehicle will make them memorable. And the way that Lila Fear and Luce Gibson used some unique music choices to give them a bit of a reputation. Evgenia and Geoffrey, you know what was amazing about this? The stationary lift, the choice of his leg extension to increase the difficulty to go with the music should push the GOE. And every fiber of her being was engaged in this straight line lift. She's so committed to the position. And you know, this team training now with Roxane Pétitin and the Ice Academy in Montreal, but they've previously had lots of other influences, including Russian Technique and Alexander Zulin and different coaches en route to this. And we're seeing the product of all those wonderful influences, which perhaps is what separates them from some of the other teams that have the same. That's just masterful, that command of a right leg extension over his head to seamlessly reconnect.
Seemed like there was not one part of their body out of place. Very intense.
Really intense, and not everybody's, you know, cup of tea. Some might enjoy watching the lyrical pieces that are, you could argue, safer or more traditional. But they've got a unique concept that is working because they have worked so hard at it to get it to this point.
121.53 is their season's best. We'll see if this score comes close to that. They'll need a little bit more to beat Piper and Paul in the free program, but we'll see. It's a 118.93. That is second in the free program for Evgenia and Geoffrey with a total competition score of 195.91, and that'll put them currently into second place. And they look okay.
There's an acceptance.
Yeah. An acceptance, maybe a higher desire.
Of course.
But really well done tonight. Our next team from Canada, Marguerite Lajoie, Zachary Lagha.
As Canadian junior pairs, Quattroque and Desmarais cheer them on. Lajoie and Lagha, another very special free dance, The Sound of Silence, emotional 4 minutes upcoming.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking. People hearing without listening. People writing songs and voices
Such incredible control for the inside spread eagle from Marjorie.
Fools say that you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words and I might teach you. Take my arms and I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops fell. Echoed in the wells of silence, and the people bowing to the neon god they made. And the sign flashed out its warning, and the words that it was forming. In the sign said the words on the prophets are written on the subway walls, tenement halls, and whispered in the sound of silence.
Marjorie Lajoie and Guignard and Lagha cheered on by the winners in the pairs event from yesterday. Oh, gosh, Ted, it is incredibly hard to differentiate these brilliant, brilliant skaters. And, you know, we've just seen Lopareva and Brissaud give something so uniquely different to the sound of silence. What is indisputable is that Marjorie and Zachary have such wonderful knee action. I was moved almost to tears watching this at the Cup of China. I thought it was just so incredibly passionate. I didn't think that had quite the same comfort as perhaps it did in China.
Well, you know, the intensity of that song and the presentation of that is so powerful, so emotional. It has to be matched by the physicality of the dance. I think it generally is.
Yes.
I mean, you saw the one in China. I didn't see that version. And
The Cup of China, I was just thinking, gosh, you know, we need to allow these young teams, if they're offering the best performances, to be given the results, to put them there. There were a couple of times I just thought they just looked a little less comfortable. But remembering that this team had the latest start of all the front runners because of the concussion that she had in September. I mean, but look at that knee action. The patella so far forward over their toe picks. That part of the reason that they create the flow and glide that constitutes those glorious skating skills. And look, I mean, there's such investment from coach.
well, this team was ranked
skaters.
5th in the world last season, so that tells you that they are certainly one of the premier teams of the world, and much depends on the performance of the day, of the night. And
as we look at their choreo slide, and this is now where it's all so down to the judges and the criteria. We have a feeling, we have a sense for what we can think is the best. We can have a feeling for what might get the best scores, but the judges have to give criteria based on grades of execution. So this, their final element, the stationary lift, that, look at her commitment. The aesthetically pleasing position, that's a positive feature. The control, that's a positive feature. The maintenance of the speed, these are all things which should result in near +4s.
you talked about they need to be in the mid to high 9s, and this is in the high 8s for the PC scores. So a little bit short on that area. Technically, they have a 1-2-3.63 season's best. And what will this be? 122.11, that is second in the free dance. Marjorie and Zachary pleased with that, with the total competition score of 199.84, and that puts them currently into first place.
And now that's significant, being the highest ranked Canadian team here. That is something that they will take with pride to finally go ahead of Piper and Paul.
Well, 199 pretty much tied for both teams. It'll be quite the national championship in Laval, Quebec. Get your tickets now, that's for sure. As we get introduced to the final group in the senior free dance, much more drama and emotion to come. Representing Great Britain, Lila Fear, Lewis Gibson. As Mark smiles.
Well, they come into this event, they were the highest ranked team based on their 2 wins on the Grand Prix series.
And from Italy, Charlene Guignard and Marco Fabbri.
They will be very satisfied to find themselves in second place after the rhythm dance, back up in the place that they were at the World Championships in Saitama, Japan 2023.
There are the current world champions, Madison Chock, Evan Bates from the United States.
And based on the series thus far, 2024-2025, there are question marks about what might happen. Madison and Evan in the rhythm dance absolutely delivered the best skate and have a deserved lead by a fair margin. But it's not to say that things won't stay spicy in the ice dance competition.
And look how tight it is between Lila and Lewis and Charlene and Marco. It's ever so close, so you need to have clean programs. Don't give any points away, which is so easy to say.
Well, it's interesting because in the rhythm dance, as we look at Lila and Lewis, the judges' scores for composition, presentation and skating skills between the Italians and the Brits were separated by 15/100ths. It's amazing that they can find such proximity between two teams which are so different. And now, as we look at Lila and Lewis, I see on Lion Ted such a divide between the ice dance fandom about this team and the Italians, because they do come with such differing approaches. What you can't dispute is that Lila and Lewis have engaged audiences globally so much, and they have continued to create performances that have enticed a fanship that is new.
Yeah, and for the past 2 years.
And yeah, Charlene and Marco, you know, we've seen Piper and Paul over the course of the past 2 days suffer such disappointment and sadness. Charlene Guignard and Marco Fabbri have been there this season. They've had their worst ever skate, they said, in Angers when they were last in France. Now they're back, and we sensed in the rhythm dance that they were back with a renewed enthusiasm and hunger, perhaps even greater than that had they not had that disappointment in Angers.
And that just goes to show you things can change within the season, and might very well over the rest of the season.
This season, they won the ISU Cup of China. Ladies and gentlemen, from Italy, Charlene Guignard and Marco.
And interesting, Charlene and Marco just looking out to see where the space is on this ice for them to move forward. And I have to say, Ted, that this morning upon watching the practice between these teams, there was a moment when Charlene and Marco and this team got close to each other. And it was so nice to see the respect that they had. You know, they got close, they kind of connected a little bit, and they were just, no, it's okay. There was such an obvious respect. And these teams, Charlene and Marco, you know, they've shared so many Olympic game experiences together. You know, Evan is going into his 5th Olympic cycle. They've been through so much, all of these skaters together, and although they all want the same thing, to take that world title that Madison and Evan currently have, they all seem to have great respect for each other's respective mutual life commitment to this.
Well, they understand what the others are going through. You know, for the high days and the poor days, they
you know, talking about they understand what everybody's going through. I see people online debating and, you know, ripping people apart and whatnot. Only these guys know what they're going through. Only these guys really know how much is given. And all 6 skaters on the ice now, whoever's your favorite, they are utterly, utterly devoted to the craft.
It's an amazing sport in a way where, you know, when you have team sports, they're against each other. Some very physical because they're physical sports. These want to beat each other at the same time. They want to respect each other, and some are friends and some are not. It's not the issue, but it is a completely different approach being in an individual sport, but on the same ice like this in a warm-up.
And then, as we see the junior dancers living their best life, supporting the seniors, and that's where, you know, we have to just respect all of these skaters for what they are giving. And we've got some records happening. I think for Madison and Evan, I think they've broken a record by being in their 8th Grand Prix final. I don't think that's happened. I think Merle Davis and Charlie White had 7, the former Olympic champions from the United States of America. That is amazing. And so for whatever you think, we've got to thank these athletes for continuing to push themselves, because it's not like they're resting upon their laurels. None of these teams are coming out this season with old material.
Every year it gets harder.
Yeah. But they choose to, they make it hard. They're pushing themselves to do harder stuff. They're not.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. They're pushing it to get to be more difficult and to be more creative and innovative. And so it gets harder every season because they're pushing the limits.
Yeah.
Which makes the sport great.
And that's, you know, we've got Charlene and Marco using this robot free dance this season. And, you know, again, I see people online saying, oh, why are they doing that? It doesn't maybe play to their strengths. But it's because maybe they're conscious of the fact that they need to do whatever they can because these teams are so tightly packed. They're all in the 9s.
Through the history of sport, of this sport, people have broken barriers and done something different that maybe people didn't like in the beginning, accepted eventually, and it changed the sport in a different direction. We see that consistently, people pushing the barriers, and we will continue right now with the final 3 teams in the free dance. And there they are. They've had a wonderful season so far, very successful, and perhaps coming in as the favorites. And but as we have seen, there's been changes of position.
And now, ladies and gentlemen,
We're just halfway through the season. The first team representing Great Britain, Lila Fear, Lewis Gibson.
And their choice of music for the free dance from Beyonce, and their message is to express the message of owning their own light and letting that shine out with full freedom, being real, projecting self-love. What a message to share. Like these are such strategically positioned opening moves to showcase their skating skills and the work that they've done in that area. Tiny check on the 3 turns. Struggled with it a little bit in practice this morning. well, so on point. Lila Beer and Lewis Gibson. And I spoke about the message that they want to portray within this Beyonce music about, you know, owning their own light. And what I felt there was that Lila, I sensed Lila in particular, she was absolutely owning her light. This is a young woman who has a wonderful podcast where she speaks with some amazing people about all sorts of psychology. She's actually in her final year of psychology degree at McGill University, and it's almost like she's spoken with all those people, and now she is owning her interpretation here. She is standing her ground.
Well,
That's what I felt in that free dance
These
there.
performances are just an extension of her voice and her mind, and you can see that in this free dance. They've always brought such entertainment and joy. I mean, talking, but not about the sport part of this, but the entertainment part of this. They've always been a crowd favorite in many ways, and
yes,
you saw that here as well. The technical part, we'll take a look. There are 6 elements that are currently under review.
You make such a good point about the crowd pleasers. You know, they've always endeavored to do that and really engage with the crowd. This arena in Grenoble, I don't know how, it seems like there's a big French crowd. I don't know how many of them are ice skaters, but they were engaged with this more than any other, and that's telling.
Yeah, it's the, you know, that energy and the joie de vivre, if you will, of that music and that performance.
Beyonce's going to help.
Yeah, exactly, in this culture. We'll see how those 6 elements that are under review shake out.
And I actually thought on this straight line left, Lewis had to work hard just to readjust ever so slightly for Lila, and he is so strong. He's such a brilliant skater, and I saw a tiny adjustment. You couldn't have spotted it, but he's not going to let anything go.
No, he did an amazing job at just remaining still and making that small adjustment. And take a look at the twizzles that were under review, but they've come in at 4s with a nice 1.77 plus GOE. So good scores coming in, good technical scores coming in for this team.
And, you know, it's often the debate about the skating skills compared to others. What we're seeing currently at present, as it continues to be input by the panel, is that the skating skills are their lowest of their 3 components, but the presentation and the composition are into the 9s. And so that is fair. But like I said at the beginning of the program, you can see the strategic choreographic input of the opening steps here, because they're trying to showcase that they have deep knees and deep ankles, they have deep edges, and they're obviously very conscious of what they need to do to move up, and they've done that all season by beating others above them.
You know, there's a number of good teams around the world, and there are a few that create magic, and this team has created magic for the fans at least. You know, as everyone has enjoyed their performances, as we see the green room, as it's called, where the leaders sit until either displaced or they remain, depending, of course, as the results continue to change. We have 2 more elements that are currently under review. It does take some time. The technical panel has replay of any of the elements that they wish to take a look at to ensure that all the teams have been evaluated fairly. If there's any doubt whatsoever, they'll mark it as a review. They'll take a look back after the conclusion of the performance. And they're on the final element, number 8.
And the technical panel will make or break some of these results in the ice dance community this year. It's going to be a level 3 or a level 4 in steps, and you know, I sense that could be what makes or breaks.
And most of this, you'll not be seen by the public.
No.
Even us. I mean, even myself, I can't see the detail of them as little mistakes sometimes.
And that's where, you know, you can get, we have such a split between the fans of the sport who can see one thing from a very different lens.
Yes, totally. And if you sat on the technical panel and listened to the process by which they follow for each team, you'd understand, wow, this is pretty thorough. It's pretty harsh, because if you miss one wrong edge, I mean, you're down, right? So we'll see what happens here. They have a 125.55 is their season's best. A personal best overall of 130. I'm not going to reach that score here, but...
And actually, interestingly, they came into this event with the 2 titles, but all the scores this season have been lower than that which they achieved last year, despite better results on the podium.
Let's take a look at the free dance score for Fear and Gibson. A 122.87, that is second in the free dance with a total competition score of 205.18, and that'll put them into first place. They have at least the silver. The bronze, at least the bronze. Can't even count. Get too excited. Here we go. From Italy, Charlene Guignard and Marco Fabbri.
Well, as we said in warm-up, Charlene and Marco displayed a rhythm dance that showcased a hunger. They came into the rhythm dance, though, much earlier now. They skate as the penultimate team. Best twizzles of the event so far. Probably one of the cleanest bracket turns there from Charlene within the 1 foot turns. Now the difficult feature in the middle of the dance spin, so wonderfully on music. A little tight on the twizzle there for Marco within the step sequence. Charlene Guignard and Marco Fabbri delight the Italian commentators below us.
I'm certainly not a dance expert, but I think this is the best I've seen this team skate. unison was just perfect. It's innovative, it's unique, it's different, it's them.
Yes, and it was interesting. I saw recently the Olympics channel online posting an homage to this team, as they do with so many of the other elite skaters, and they posted a clip of Charlene and Marco at the Beijing 2022 games, and it was only upon seeing that skating that I was aware of they have made big progression in just 2 seasons, and now into the 3rd season since that time. And as I have said, there has been so much debate about the merits of this choice of music and this vehicle for the team. But if we think about the composition score and what the judges have to say, they have criteria. So whether you like this or not, whether you think it's the best vehicle for Charlene and Marco, they have to consider the multi-dimensional movement and use of space. There was multi-dimensional movement and use of space, connection between and within elements. There was, each of the musical articulations had this robotic energy between the elements. Does the choreography reflect the musical phrase and form? Yes, it absolutely does. Was there pattern and ice coverage? Yes, it absolutely ticks composition from what the judges' criteria is.
Yeah, and it's interesting, as you mentioned, people that like this or don't like this, and the breakdown based on the rules.
Yeah, and that's what's dictating the result, and that's presentation. That's the presentation criteria is the commitment and engagement. Marco's face right there was engaged to his robot, and it looked like the straight line lift at the opening of the program looked a little sticky, but he wasn't going to let it go as it did in France.
Barbara does her own robot movement.
Listen, she scares me. If you were taught by her, you do whatever she says.
That's right.
And here, even the hand movement, there's the block of their hand. Their hand isn't held with an extension of the forefinger or the index finger. There's a block hand, which is akin to the robotic kind of movement that they're going for.
That's the great thing about ice dance, is that each team brings different flavors to their performance, of which engage the audience as what they like and what they don't like. The breakdown of the sport part of it's more complicated, of course. You're exhausted, aren't you?
And do you know, I'm exhausted for the judges too, thinking about how they stand by whatever they go with, because they're all elite, brilliant athletes. And we're seeing, what are we in, December the 7th? These concepts might have been considered even before this season. These concepts are months old and months of work refined.
Well, 128.18 is their season's best. 132.34 is their personal best. And how close will this score come to a season's best here? It draws a little bit short with a 122.99. That is second in the free dance for Charlene and Marco. The total competition score 206.11. And that will put them currently into first place. At least that guarantees the silver medal.
Yes.
Which brings them currently in first place.
Relief for Charlene and Marco to lead the field until this performance, at least.
One team to come. They represent the United States of America, the current world champions, Madison Chock and Bates.
And they lead the field after the rhythm dance by some comfortable margin. In this free dance, they've had some change of circular step sequence to diagonal step sequence to create more flow, and that pushing their skating skills as they get ready to skate to music from take 5 with a 5-4 time signature upcoming. The most ice coverage in the choreographic spinning movement.
won't you stop and take a little time out with me? I'm alive, I'm alive.
Well, two-time world champions for a reason, Madison Chock and Evan Bates. What a year. Married in the summer. They received their Team Olympic gold in Paris in the summer too. And those amazing achievements and accomplishments haven't deterred their eagerness to pursue continued domination of the ice dance field.
Well, Madison brings so many beautiful moments or pictures throughout that time on the ice, because although they're always moving and always fluid, you just capture these shots of Madison in her presentation. It's quite extraordinary.
It just never hits a bad line,
No.
just always. The adjective to me is class, like just classy. And it's interesting, as I think back upon this event, there was greater speed from Lopareva and Brissaud. I think they were the fastest of all. I think perhaps there was tighter musicality maybe from Piper and Paul, but on the whole, Madison and Evan just, I've said to you that this result has to be defined by the criteria, but my feeling, if I don't analyze too distinctly on the grades of execution and the components, is these are the leaders, these are the best.
Yeah, absolutely. In speed, although it matters, it doesn't dominate.
No, mastery of the blade, there are a whole host of other factors.
When you look at the GOEs for this team, they're all in the 3s and high 2s. I mean, it's incredible the scores that they're piling up here technically.
Well, if it's 2 points or 3 points extra, that's probably indicating it's +4s of the +5 grade of execution, as we see the choreo spinning movement. And it's interesting because you can make the choreo spin movement comparison with Piper and Paul because they did a very similar type of choice of positioning, and this did cover more ice, and that constitutes, on the criteria, a better positive feature.
Every single move has an expression from Madison, and it changes throughout the program if you just watch her face. And I know that has nothing to do with the technical part, but...
Well, it's multi-dimensional, it's different facets. As we look back at the curve lift, it's just got beautiful feet, just such glorious extension. And this point of balance is...
Wow, that's amazing.
And I know it doesn't matter to everybody, Ted, but we've got to give props to that dress. Madison designs all her own dresses. It's meant to be a nod to the Statue of Liberty. She's been the winner of the International Skating Union Best Costume Award, and she... Yeah, notoriously.
She's multi-talented, there's no question. Well, they have a 129.63 season's best and 138 personal best, but I think the score might be a new season's best. We'll see. That was pretty meticulous. That was pretty well delivered, right on cue with all the details. And this should be a solid score for the free dance. And there it is, the season's best, 132.12. And they are thrilled.
Evan looks a bit surprised.
Yeah, maybe a bit surprised, exactly. First place by quite a bit in the free dance with a 219.85 competition score.
And that is a over 13-point margin, which is huge, especially when you've got 6 amazing skaters there looking on. But we've got to think back. This team, he's going into his 5th Olympics. They've been through so much. I said yesterday in the rhythm dance that they had a gulf of time where they were off the world podium. They've had their hardships. This is the the golden era for Madison Chock and Evan Bates.
You can see the experience, so in handling every situation, emotional situation, physical situation as well, and there was no detail that wasn't performed to the utmost in that program, and if they keep that level, they're going to be hard to beat.
Yes, and now this, after the Grand Prix series, the 6 events leading up to this final were tumultuous. This is a statement with the result here as we look at Lila Fear and Lewis Gibson, who, although perhaps disappointed that whilst they came into this event as the front runners in the standings, they should be pleased that they have got onto the podium, a feat that they didn't manage at the last 2 World Championships that they're so desperate to do come the Boston Worlds, when Beyonce will be played to a very excited arena in March.
There's that big smile as we move on to Charlene Guignard and Marco Fabbri of Italy. And a bold, innovative, different approach that was beautifully delivered here. And I thought this was their best performance of this particular program.
And again, it shows the ever-changing tide this season. Ebbs and flows for all the teams.
As they end up with the 206.11. But 13 points shy of this team.
Yes, and they won the Grand Prix final. This is their 8th Grand Prix final appearance. They won it for the first time last year. They've defended it this season. Madison Chock and Evan Bates, and actually not just defending it, convincingly defending it.
On this night. But there's more to come. There's the European Championships, the 4 Continents Championships, and the granddaddy of them all, the World Championships in Boston. The United States is looking good for a pretty thrilling competition. Let's take a listen to the champions.
Congratulations again. Please make some noise for them, first of all. You are the reigning champs. Is it better the first time or the second time? Tell us. Est-ce que c'est meilleur? Est-ce que c'est le meilleur la première fois ou la deuxième fois? Parce qu'ils ont gagné juste avant.
Each time feels like the best time, every time we're in it. Merci beaucoup for your amazing support. We're so happy to be here. Thank you for cheering us on and giving us all the support and strength to give our best performance.
Bon, bah, chaque fois, c'est la meilleure fois et elle vous remercie, vous l'avez compris, pour tout le soutien et l'énergie que vous leur avez donné. You competed here twice. How does it feel to be back in this rink in Grenoble and this time leaving with the gold medal? Ils sont venus déjà ici disputer les compétitions, mais cette fois-ci, ils repartent avec la médaille d'or. Qu'est-ce que ça leur fait? How does it feel?
It feels amazing, frankly. I feel like the rink has gotten a facelift with the boards, and the whole venue is really top-notch, and we just absolutely love skating here. We feel your appreciation for figure skating. We love skating so much. We love dancing with each other, and to share our love of skating with a public who also loves skating is just the best combination.
Bon, bah, il a trouvé que la patinoire s'est embellie et il est ravi de partager avec vous son amour pour le patinage et ravi que vous soyez là pour les encourager encore une fois. We wish you the best for the rest of the season. Thank you again. Ladies and gentlemen, your ice dance, free dance champions!
Well, that concludes the coverage of the senior free dance. Up next will be the men's free, perhaps one of the premier events this week. The men's free, we'll hope you will join us.